Yeah, I think it'd be great if Adriana, if you want to hop back on to share a little bit about your experience and, how did you hear about community colleges to begin with? What led you to them? And then what your experience was applying and how it's been this first semester.
Sure. So I first came to the US as, I can't start my video.
It's not letting you start it again. Okay.
Yeah.
1 second. Let's see.
Well, I first came to the US as an exchange student during high school. And I decided I really wanted to stay for college here, but it was really expensive. So I basically talked to the counselor of my high school, and she told me she studied in KVCC, and she recommended me to look it up. So that's what I did, and I received my acceptance letter. Since I was already living in the US, it was more similar to what a normal American student would do. But then I also had to fill some international paperwork that they sent to me, and I emailed it to the community college, and that's about it. I started this past September, so everything has basically been online. But, well, I'm hoping this is going to go away soon and I'll be able to attend classes.
Can you talk a little bit about what classes are like that you're doing it virtually and how that experience has been? And what you're studying as well, what kind of classes you're taking?
Oh, yeah. Well, in the online classes, you have Zoom classes and you have completely online classes. The completely online ones is you don't really talk to the teacher at all, so I don't really like those ones as much. I'd rather have the ones that you can actually call with the teacher and you have like weekly classes. And right now I'm doing studio art, but I'm also taking some honors classes because this is part of the honors scholarship, which is available for international students. So if any of y'all want to apply for it, you can totally do it. I think the requirements is a GPA of either 3 or 3.5, I don't remember, but they'll let you know. And you just have to take a couple honors classes, but that they still cover the credits that you will have to take anyways. So it's not like you're taking more classes.
Great, thanks, Adriana. I see we have some questions already coming in. The best way to ask a question would probably be through the question and answer feature. You can certainly write it in the chat box, but it's a little easier to make sure we're getting to everyone's questions if you put it in the question and answer. So Carla already answered for Lane about the question that we had about TOEFL, if you accept TOEFL and what is considered a high enough score. I don't know if you want to answer, Chris, for Kalamazoo Valley. I'll say generally every school is different and you can find all that information on their websites too.
Yeah, I would say probably or virtually every school would accept the TOEFL. There may be a range of what they accept. We accept a 61 TOEFL score. So certainly I think a 91 was posted there. That's a fantastic score. Congratulations on that. And that sounds like a college ready student to me. So yes, TOEFL is virtually universally accepted.
Mm-hmm. So TOEFL, IELTS, or we also encourage students to see if institutions, whether it's a community college or university, accept Duolingo. It's a little bit of a cheaper of an option. So it helps you save some more money as well with application costs. So we have some questions coming in. First question, is it easy to get a scholarship as an international student from your home country, not as an international student doing your senior year in the US?
Wait, could you repeat it?
Yeah.
Yes, is it easy to get in a scholarship as an international student from your home country, not as an international student doing your senior year in the US? So if you're based in Spain or in a different country when you're applying, does that limit your ability to get a scholarship? I don't know if Chris or Carla want to speak.
Honestly,
I
did, yeah. Well, I did most of my high school in Spain, so most of my high school GPA is really my Spanish grades. So yes and no. You just have to translate your Spanish grades to the American system and apply for it. But I also understand that getting high grades in American high school is easier than in Spanish high school. So that's kind of like where you guys may have a harder time, just because my GPA got really low, just counting my Spanish high school years, but those were actually good grades. It's just that they are not considered as good in the American school system. I don't know if I'm explaining myself, but.
So I'll just say in general, to answer the question too, yes, as an international student, it doesn't matter where you're applying from. Most of the scholarships that are available to you are based on grades, as Adriana was referring to, but there's scholarships for all the different types of things. So if you want some more general information about that, reach out to us, and we have lots of documents, and there's information on our website too about the different types of scholarships to look for, but usually it's going to be based on your grades. Sometimes it's based on volunteer activities like service work or any sort of leadership roles that you hold. But you won't be at a disadvantage because you're applying from outside of the US instead of inside the US. And sometimes there's scholarships specific for international students living outside of the US. Next question, how to choose the perfect community college for us as the international students, especially that we want a school that has students who are going through the same experience. So finding your fit, how is a good way to find the school that matches for you? Chris, I don't know if you have any tips on that, or Adriana, who went through the process.
Yeah, I can share a few tips right away, and one of them is just to reach out to the schools, whether it's Carlo or myself. Begin as just someone searching. Start to interact with that school. How do you feel about the way that they respond? How accessible are they? That's probably someone you're going to work with once you're at that community college. Most of our community college international departments are relatively small. So start to get to know the people that you'll be working with. So that's certainly one. And the other is to think about what your longer term goal is. If it's to earn a bachelor's degree, is there a community college in the same community as where you hope to earn that bachelor's degree? Or can that four-year school that you're ultimately interested in make a recommendation for you? Those are a couple of things that you might consider, but I can't stress enough how much I recommend communicating with the school. Adriana?
Yeah, Adriana,
Yep.
go ahead.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty much similar to what you just said, Chris. Actually, I'm pretty sure you were the first person I talked with
Probably.
out of all the KVCC people.
Sure.
So I think I just reached out to you and I just started asking questions. So yeah, I think that's pretty much what I would recommend.
We also have a lot of information on our website and advising resources too about what your priorities are when you're thinking about studying in the US and what kind of institution to choose. We have different worksheets. So an academic advisor at Education USA Spain can also guide you through thinking about what your goals are and what are kind of the most important things on your list when you're searching through all of the options that exist in the US. And then another thing we always encourage students to do as well is to look at the social media of the institutions that you're interested in, or to reach out to the admissions office specifically to see if they can connect you with some international students, particularly if they have students from your home country, from Spain like Adriana, just to see what the experience is like, because there's no one better to tell you what it's like to study there than a student who goes there. So, Carla, I don't know if you had anything to add.
Oh, to the community college search, like
or the previous questions, yeah.
Yeah, well, I would just say about the search, one thing you can look at is your preference as far as location. So if you want to be in a very large city, or if you prefer to be in a smaller city, so you can always research that. You should look at things for housing. And basically, I just say what Chris said, reach out directly to the community colleges and start asking them questions, see who is responsive, and ask about things that are important to you and the programs that are important to you.
Next question we have, the level of the classes between Spain and the US is different. Is the level there harder?
Well, is this person talking about high school or college? Because I can't really speak. Oh, high school? Okay.
Oh, I was going to say, I assume college.
Yeah, I've never been to college in Spain, so I can't really compare. And the friends, well, my friends that are going to college in Spain, they are studying things that are very different to what I'm studying. So it's not really a good comparison either. So yeah, I think here you have more freedom to choose if you wanna go through an easier route or through a harder route, because they tell you more or less which classes you have to take, but you can still choose. You can choose how hard they're gonna be. You can choose a lot of things. In Spain, they just tell you which classes and which times you are taking them, and you can't really choose anything.
So I'll add to that too. One of the biggest differences we hear from Spanish students studying in the US, when we hear back from them once they've started their studies, or students also who might have transferred from a Spanish university to an American university. It was referenced a little bit during the presentation, but there's a lot of flexibility and there's a lot of emphasis on engaging and interacting in the class, especially at smaller institutions like community colleges, where you're going to know your professor more intimately, probably. And they're going to know your name, and it's going to be more of like a conversational setting where the professor wants to know what you think and they want you to interact. If it's not just about studying for a large test at the end. So that's a common difference between the Spanish system. And then whether it's harder or easier really just, I think, depends a bit on the class. There's a lot of variation and on your own strengths as a student. But I think that's something that a lot of Spanish students note is it's much more engaging and participatory compared to some of the classes in the philosophy of education in Spain. Next question, if I have a bachillerato, what do I exactly have to do so I can apply to a community college with credits? Minerva, I assume you mean bachillerato like you've finished, segundo de bachillerato, you don't mean a bachelor's degree already. I don't know if Carla or Chris want to respond to application processes specifically at your institutions, but I can say generally, you're going to need to send transcripts. Sometimes, not all community colleges require transcripts, like Chris and Carla mentioned. Sometimes you're going to need to prove level of English through a previous exam or an exam that you can take at the actual community college beforehand. Sometimes there's recommendation letters, but the thing that we always say is it depends so much based on the school. And so it's always best to look directly on the website of the institution you're working with. But I'll let you guys speak more specifically.
All good information. I would say that community colleges will tend to require fewer of those things, like letters of recommendation, really even transcripts. If a student is in a position where they have completed some post-secondary work, some college level work, we do work with some credit evaluators outside of the college to allow students to transfer in credit. So if I understood the question correctly, there was a little bit of that in there. And those companies charge to do that, but generally speaking, they might charge less than what 1 credit hour costs. So if you're in a position where you might be able to bring with you a math class or a science class or simply an elective, it is certainly worth doing that. But to be clear, at least with Kalamazoo Valley, but I think many community colleges, I don't need that in order to make an admissions decision. That's a service for students who wish to transfer in some post-secondary credit.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's similar at Lane. Yeah, and we do require your transcripts from high school. We require that students be 17. What is your age, Chris? Or not your age, but
I would have turned 40 this year, but I'm not counting it because of the pandemic. So
you're welcome at Lane.
Yeah, thank you. We don't have a policy regarding age. We would consult on an individual basis with students. it's not necessarily a problem for us to enroll a student that is younger than what you're describing. And we have high school students who enroll with us all the time, but we would want to make sure that the student has a plan for where to live. And of course, that's very difficult if they're a minor student, although sometimes students have a host family in the area, and we've been able to work with them on that.
Okay, cool, yeah.
Chris and Carla bring up great points. If we have any students who maybe haven't completed their bachillerato and only went to cuarto de la ESO, but they didn't start bachillerato, or they're doing some sort of grado medio or grado superior, at a lot of community colleges in the US, as long as you meet, if there is some sort of age requirement, oftentimes it's 17 or 18, if you meet that age requirement, then oftentimes you don't even need to have completed your bachillerato to be able to access the community college. So that's a big plus, because in Spain, you have to complete your grado superior to even be able to go to university. But at Lane, Lane or Kalamazoo Valley or any community college, you'd be saving 2 years time. So you could start your university studies. You'd be starting essentially your first year of university at a community college. Without having done a grado superior, without having done your bachillerato, as long as you meet the age requirement if they have one, and start your grado immediately in the US. So that's a really great option to consider as well if that's the situation you're in. We have a question about certificate programs. So Sally has graduated university with a bachelor degree in English literature, and she has her teaching certificate. Do you have any suggestions about searching for certificate programs, or what to look out for when you're looking for those kinds of options in the US?
Yeah, at Lane, we do offer some short-term certificate options, and I think that's pretty common. So different community colleges might offer certificate programs in different areas. We have a certificate for early childhood education, so I don't know if teaching younger children is interesting to you, Sally, but we do have a fantastic certificate program for that. And we also then have certificate programs in business, graphic design, aviation, culinary, hospitality management. And these offer shorter term programs that are all inclusive. So you can come and just do a 9-month or 12-month certificate and graduate, and then you're finished. So there are really great options for shorter term programs as well.
I would only add quickly that is not an uncommon path. I have students right now who have already earned bachelor's degrees. I had a student last semester graduate who had a master's degree but wanted to explore another academic area. And that's very common. So it's not unusual for students who have bachelor's or even graduate level degrees to want to add something to their academic portfolio, and we can be a good option for that too.
And usually if you're—
And I would add too, yeah, thanks. For English, we do have students who come just to study English as well. And at Lane, we have programs as short as 3 months. So we do welcome students. We have international students who just come for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and they just focus on English studies. Maybe it's for their career, to advance their career in their home country. They realize they need English. Self-interest, they just want to come and study, have a gap period away from home, that type of thing. So English could be a focus as well.
Chris or Carla, do either of you have programs where they're often called like bridge programs, where students, maybe if their level of English isn't high enough, they can start their studies by starting English and then transition into the community college? Is that an option that's common for international students at your schools?
Yeah, for a 3-month bridge or a 6-month bridge. So we welcome students who need to improve their English, but they could start taking academic credit programs at the same time. And they can do that for 3 months or 6 months, depending on their English level, and then be earning credits towards graduation during the bridge time.
Yeah. We happen to have a couple of partners nearby who actually two different English language institutions. So we actually would work with them rather than duplicating their services on our campus. We have students that go there, and then we actually have a process of placing those students at Kalamazoo Valley once they've completed whatever level of English proficiency they need.
Great. Okay. So as you can see, lots of flexible options when it comes to making the U.S. studies a reality. If you feel like, oh, maybe my level's not good enough, you can just start directly at the community college, improving that level. And then another thing when you guys were speaking that came to mind was usually if you get a student visa, so an F1 visa, and you're in the U.S. for about a year-long program, another exciting option that's available to you if you want to continue your studies, maybe you do, we were talking about certificate programs, maybe you're not interested in getting your whole degree in the US, but you want to do a certificate program. If you're there for at least a year, usually you're able to stay another year after your program is over for what's called OPT, which is essentially like an internship after your studies are over. So if we have any other people interested who are participating today in just doing a certificate program, but maybe you want to stay in the US a little bit longer than a year, that's another interesting way to continue to gain professional experience and advance in your career in a different cultural context and a different system entirely.
Yeah, and to add on to that, also we have on-campus work opportunities. So when you are an international student, you have a student visa. So of course your academic performance is very, very important, but the student visa does allow for an on-campus job. And many community colleges will have those on-campus part-time job opportunities. And that's a great way to practice your English, a great way to get experience. And we have jobs in the library, the bookstore, my office. And we love to have the students engaged and working together. And that's another fantastic opportunity. And then of course, yes, the OPT option after a certificate or associate's degree.
Do we have any other questions? I think we've answered them all in the chat box. If you want to ask your question live too, if you want to turn on your microphone, you can raise your hand and we can enable that as well if you don't want to type it all out. While we're waiting to see if we have any other questions come in, Adriana, I just wanted to ask you, obviously your experience has been a little bit different this year because of COVID and starting online instead of in person. Can you share a little bit with the students about what it was like to arrive in the US and how it's been, if there was anything that was difficult to transition or kind of, anything that surprised you about American culture or studying in the US?
Well, it's not that much difference. It's just, well, I came from Madrid, so I came from a bigger city, and I think one of the biggest shocks for me, was just going to a smaller city where the houses were like so separated. And well, right now I'm living with my host family, so I think another big cultural shock, or I don't know how you want to call it, would be the meal times and just eating itself, because everything is like so different. They have dinner at like 7 and they have lunch at noon, and breakfast I don't even know, and like their biggest meal is dinner, so you are not supposed to really eat a lot at lunch either. It's like you need to wait until dinner to eat. So yeah, I think that was my biggest cultural shock. But besides that, I don't think, well, you miss the good weather of Spain, you miss the food. And here it snows, well, I'm in Michigan right now, so it snows during like half of the year, but you get used to it.
That's another, so Adriana brings up a good point when we're talking about fit and defining priorities and figuring out what's a good school for you. Thinking about region, as Carla and Chris had mentioned before, that's important if you're used to really nice weather wherever you're from, or warm weather, and the idea of snow or wearing a jacket for a lot of the school year is not interesting to you, then be careful or pay attention to the areas of the US you're looking at schools in. The US has a lot of different types of weather depending on where you live. And, you know, when you talk about different types of campuses too and housing options, and what it looks like in homes, whether it's a community college might offer, you know, a host family, or would you be living in a residence hall with other students, potentially other international students, or is it an apartment on campus or an apartment off campus? If the campus is more located in the middle of a city, or if it's more located maybe in a rural area or suburban area, those are all things that are going to influence what it's like to study there, both your day-to-day, but also if you're looking to do an internship, or you're looking to explore the city more for the cultural offerings that they have. If that's something that's interesting to you, then maybe you want to look more for a community college that's closer to a city so you have easier access to it. Some people like to be more in the suburbs or in a rural area because they enjoy oftentimes more space that the campuses have, or the quietness that's there. So those are all little things that seem little, but it's important to think about because you're going to be spending at least a year or two at the community college before you transfer. So. We have a question about options for athletics in Lane and Kalamazoo. And I'll add to, in addition to that, because we get a lot of questions about it, athletic scholarships as well. Is that something that exists in community colleges?
Yeah, we have several varsity sports. Let's see if I can name them: men's and women's basketball. We have volleyball, baseball, and softball. And yeah, absolutely, we've had several international students participate in those sports. So usually that is handled specifically by an athletic department at the school, so we can certainly get you in touch with the right folks if that's something that someone's looking at.
Yeah, and that would be the exact same at Lane. I think the exact same athletic areas, and we do offer scholarships to new international students at Lane, but not specific for athletes. So, but any student athletes would be welcome to apply for the international student scholarships.
If anyone on the call is interested more about sports scholarships in general, we have a lot of information about that on our website too. Or like I said, you can reach out to us and we'll explain a little bit. It's certainly kind of its own process sometimes when you're looking for sports scholarships, and it also depends a little bit the type of school and the type of sports that they offer, the divisions that they offer. So we can definitely chat more about that too. If you're interested, just send us a message in our formulario on our website. Is it possible to work on the weekends on campus?
Yeah, a student that's working on campus is allowed to work up to 20 hours per week. That's a federal rule, and yeah, often the weekend is the best window of opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and that would be the same at Lane.
Carla mentioned a lot of different types of jobs on campus. It's very common for American students to work while they're studying as well. And as Carla was mentioning, the different types, some jobs require you to be engaged a lot more than other jobs, and are good opportunities to start building your professional experience and your resume. But some jobs are a little bit more maybe administrative in nature. There are some jobs where you can do your homework while you're sitting at a desk. Maybe you're sitting at the front desk of like a residence hall or something, or you work in the library, and once you get your tasks done, you have time to do some of your schoolwork. So there are a lot of different types of options and flexibility. It really depends on the job that you have and your supervisor. But when it comes to hours too, like Chris said, it's usually able to work on the weekend. Yeah, but we always tell students the job, as Carla mentioned as well earlier, is not to finance your studies. So it's just for your day-to-day, expenses that you have. Go out with friends, get something to eat, shopping, that kind of thing. You shouldn't be relying on the job that you might get at a community college or at a university to pay for your studies. And when you apply, you're gonna need to be able to show that you have enough finances to be able to apply as well. So when you're looking at the different options, keep that in mind as well, as far as financial aid goes.
Yeah, I'll add to that. That's actually a really important comment. We do have a lot of on-campus jobs, but it's not a guarantee. So you do have to come and talk to your advisors and apply for the jobs. They're not just guaranteed. And most of our on-campus jobs don't provide a full 20 hours. So the maximum an international student can study is, I mean, sorry, not study, work.
Study all you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the maximum you can work is 20 hours. But honestly, just so you know, most jobs will provide 5, maybe 10 hours a week of work. So I completely agree. It's not really one of the ways to finance your studies, but it's more like pocket money to go to Starbucks and to go out and do fun things.
We have a question about wages. It really depends on the job too, but usually, I don't know, I'm thinking with my school jobs that I had when I was on campus, maybe you guys can speak to it more, but it can range anywhere from like $8 to $15 an hour, I think, depending on the job.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now 15 is probably a little ambitious for
Yeah.
us. Yeah. But yeah, you know, we happen to have, well, I could tell you here, I think we have 2 student jobs posted right now that pay $10.75 per hour. So, like you said, it's supplemental income. It's a great way to earn a little bit extra money, a good way to spend your time, keep yourself out of trouble. And that's really the nature of it. Again, not intended to be the primary source of funding. But.
Mm-hmm. And if we have any students, you know, when you're searching for institutions and you're not finding ones that match the budget that you have, reach out to us, send us a message. We'd be more than happy to help you kind of comb through the list of schools and see if there's an option either that offers additional funding or that their initial price is lower and matches your budget. Sometimes it can be deceiving when you first see the total price on a website. So we always encourage students to keep clicking around on the website and keep looking and making sure that you're not missing the financial aid page or the scholarships page. Chris and Carla, you can speak to this a little bit more. Oftentimes community colleges, to apply for the scholarships, you do it after you've been admitted, not before, which is a little bit different to some four-year institutions. I don't know if it's the same at your schools, but paying attention to the different deadlines and what the process is. So sometimes you can't always see the scholarships until you've been admitted and you're able to access like portals that have more scholarship information. I don't know if that's the same at your institutions.
Yeah, most of our opportunities would be after a student enrolls. So, you know, I would, you know, again, start having that specific conversation with the school and find out what's available. And I would also stress, as you mentioned, also really look at what your actual cost is and your bottom line, and not to dwell as much on what amount of scholarship am I getting and more on what am I actually going to pay.
Yeah, and at Lane, we are very happy to actually be able to provide scholarships to international students before they come. And you actually need to apply for them while you're doing the study application. So it's kind of, you do it at the same time. And we offer scholarships up to $3,500 for new international students. And you do have to write 3 short essays, and that's for the scholarship application. But Lane does have almost $1 million available in our scholarship fund. And I'm actually always kind of amazed by how many students do not apply because those who do apply, actually, many of them are awarded really fantastic scholarships. And I'll actually repeat what I said in the presentation, something to think about when you're at your community college. As you're getting ready to transfer to a university, be sure to research scholarships to the second 2 years at a university. And we've had a lot of our international students have a lot of success in getting great scholarships, even full scholarships for their final 2 years at university. So it kind of is an ongoing process. It does take some work. So you do need to be persistent. You know, you will probably have to write some essays. You'll have to get some staff and teachers to write letters of recommendation. So it does take some time. So worth it. One of our students who graduated this year in June received the full scholarship to university, which is worth about $120,000.
Wow.
Including like stipend for food, stipend for housing, like unbelievable opportunities. So they're out there, but you have to plan ahead, look at deadlines like you said, and get your ducks in a row. But I know our advisors are here to help you too and guide you through the process. So don't be shy to make appointments and stay in front of us. And it's definitely well worth it.
Yeah, Carla and Christopher brought up both during the presentation and during this round of questions, all of the support services that are available to students. And that's something that is also slightly different sometimes in Spain. There's so many offices and staff at the university that are there to help you, specifically international students, but also just with your studies in general. And so, you know, you're paying for this education, so you want to make sure you're taking advantage of all of those great resources to help you succeed and kind of move on to your next step. So we have time for one more question. The question is about accommodation, how much the price is, very specific question, for an apartment for one student for a year. I don't know if you happen to know that off the top of your head, but I'm sure that information is on the website too.
Yeah, so our students live off campus, so they can choose a variety of campus options. Loosely, what we tell them to budget is about $1,000 per month. That can range considerably. That's including their living expenses. That's what they need to report to us to receive their immigration documents. So that can really vary. Obviously, if you live with a roommate, it can vary. We also place students with host families in our area. So.
Yeah, and at Lane, not too long ago, we actually built new student apartments as an initiative to support international students. But our American students also live there. And our apartments have full kitchens, and each apartment has 4 private bedrooms. So you will share the apartment with 3 other students of the same gender. And a lot of our international students have told us they actually can save a lot of money by preparing their own meals because they have a full kitchen. Of course, they can eat in the cafeteria. We have a restaurant on campus, coffee shops, and so you don't have to cook for yourself, but if you're on a lower budget, it can really save money to go to the market and get your own food. Our apartments are about $630 a month, and that includes all utilities, Wi-Fi, electricity, garbage, service, all of the utilities are included in that. And the apartments were built specifically for students, so they're open 360 days a year. Students don't need to move out over long holiday breaks, which is something you should look at. Some dormitories do close during long holidays, and then international students can kind of be left in a lurch because they don't have a place to go easily. But our apartments never close. We have free bicycles that students can check out, computer labs in the apartments with free printing, study lounges, lots of amenities for our international students.
So that's another thing when you're trying to figure out what's good fit for you, housing options and how much it costs if the school doesn't have housing on campus, what kind of services they might offer to help you find housing off of campus, and also just information that they can share about how much it costs to live in that city off campus. And that'll help you kind of figure out too what the best option is for you, whether it be on campus or off campus, and how much to budget as well. Adriana, as we're coming to a close, I don't know if you or Chris or Carla have any other tips or recommendations that you want to share with students.
Well, I'll just, both Carla and I throughout the course of this conversation have posted our email addresses again in the chat. So, one thing I would stress is, either of us, just reach out. Even if you just say hello and that begins a dialogue, those things are helpful, and we can help connect you with the right resources. And again, I guess that's my tip. Ask questions. Start the conversation. We're all getting better at Zoom and remote appointments, and we love to talk to people. So the biggest thing I can stress is get a hold of us. Start to have a one-on-one conversation about what you are looking for and what you need, and get away. Move from general questions to let's look at your specific scenario and see how we can help.
Yeah, completely agree with Chris. We love to talk with students, and we love to answer your questions. We're always here to help you. And of course, Education USA has the 2 centers in Spain, which is an awesome resource because they represent all community colleges and universities. So you can easily find a best fit university or college for you.
Great. Well, thank you. Adriana, do you have anything to add?
I don't think so. Oh, well, I just wanted to say that even if someone wants to get a scholarship and you guys can't because you don't have enough grades or from high school or whatever, it doesn't matter, because once you enter the college and once you study there for 1 semester or 1 year or whatever amount of time, people don't look at your high school grades anymore, and they look at the college grades. So if you had a really bad year in your freshman year of high school and you like really messed up, don't worry, because once you start college, those grades are the ones that are going to count for a scholarship. So even if you can't get one in the first place, you're probably going to be able to get one once you start.
Great point.
Yep.
Thank you, Adriana. Well, thank you everyone for participating, both Chris, Adriana, and Carla. Thank you so much for sharing all of the information and for your time today. And thank you everyone for connecting and all of the wonderful questions that you had. As Carla mentioned, we're always here at Education USA Spain to either help put you in contact with the university, to help you understand what you might be reading on a website that doesn't make sense and you're a little confused, or if you just have no idea where to start, reach out to us. We can offer help in Spanish and English. But as Carla and Chris both mentioned, your best resource for super specific questions is going to be the school itself. And that's what they're there for, to answer questions. So don't be shy, reach out, do your research first, look at the website, but then, afterwards connect with them and show that you're interested in their institution. So thank you so much. I hope everyone has a good rest of their day, rest of their evening. And we look forward to connecting with you and supporting you soon. Thank you.